What's up, everybody? Chris, Legendary Meta, and we have breaking news from Wizards of the Coast. No more small sets. The summer set is going to be a core set. The Masterpiece series update. All that and more in this episode of the MTG update. Welcome back, everybody. So today, I'm not going to go over everything in fine detail, but what I wanted to do was at least break the information to you as quickly as possible. So, first change that they talk about today is the fact that we will no longer have small sets. What does this actually mean? Well, that means the winter, spring, and fall sets, all those sets will be large sets. No more secondary sets. The summer set will actually be a core set. To get the reason for that, let's go ahead and directly read from the website. The reason for that is because from a creative standpoint, we plan to stay on worlds for as many sets as it makes sense for the story. Some worlds will be a single set, while others might be 2 or 3 sets. If we stay on a world for more than one set, something about how the world is constructed will let us have a delineation between the sets. Sometimes, but not all the times, we will have a mechanical carryover between sets that share a world. For instance, under this new model, if we choose to stay on Kaladesh for 2 sets, we might have chosen to use energy in both sets, most likely playing around in different design spaces. But the rest of the mechanics would have been unique to their set. Note that sets share a world won't necessarily overlap in any mechanics. So that's a little confusing. Basically, what they are saying is, let's just say Aether Revolt didn't exist anymore, and Our Devastation doesn't exist. But then you have Kaladesh and Amonkhet. They could have then, by sharing possible worlds or creating that story arc, that the energy mechanic from Kaladesh could have moved over to Amonkhet, but because we're in this current block format, the story doesn't sort of meld with that kind of creativity. Now, I think they could easily do that differently with using the block format, but I kind of like the change and the move of getting out of the block format. So they go on to saying, this also means that we are essentially removing the concept of blocks. Sets will share worlds on occasion, but the preset structure of locked number of expansions being played together is no more. So basically, no more blocks, no more small sets, and we're going to have 4 sets a year. Now, this is also in line with a lot of the different things that players like myself have been asking for. So they go on to explaining more in the article on how core sets are now coming back and how they're going to fit into the current rotation. So they are going to be standard legal, as well as they're going to have some new cards and some reprint cards. So it's going to be a mixture of both. A couple of things to note also before we move into the rotation. They also say that the large sets will all be drafted alone. So limited play will always be only one set moving forward. So you'll no longer have a 2-set draft format, which I think is pretty cool. So for instance, as well, pre-releases will no longer be a combined pre-release. Moving on, let's take a look at how the new rotation will work. They created this nice graphic, better than the last one, to sort of explain how rotation will work moving forward. So as it's shown here, and as we already know, when Ixalan comes out, Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, Shadows over Innistrad, and Eldritch Moon will rotate out, which will leave us Kaladesh, Aether Revolt, Amonkhet, Our Devastation, Ixalan, Eggs, Soup, and then they're going to be adding a core set in the summer of 2018. When the fall set comes out, which is codenamed Spaghetti right now, Aether Revolt, Amonkhet, our devastation will all rotate out, which will leave Ixalan, eggs, soup, the core set, spaghetti, all in standard. Keep in mind, the set codename eggs will be the last small set that Wizards of the Coast produces under this current format, which means the summer of 2018 will see the very first core set, and moving forward, we will still get 4 sets a year. They will all be full set releases. This, I believe, is probably one of the best decisions that Wizards of the Coast has made recently. In fact, this may be the sign of new and better things to come to Standard. The next announcement that Wizards of the Coast made, now, and I'm going to self-admittedly say, I don't know a lot about the storyline currently as far as the Gatewatch and so on and so forth, but one of the things that I find interesting is they're taking a different approach to the Gatewatch. A couple of highlights that I sort of got from the announcement is that the Gatewatch will start to appear less. To read directly from the article to explain the change, they state, we're significantly pulling back on how often the Gatewatch will appear as Planeswalker cards. It will still happen when the story calls for it, but far less often. For example, for all of 2017 and 2018, only a handful of Planeswalker cards will be Gatewatch members. And that's including Planeswalker decks, where they'll appear slightly more often. Our new plan is to continue to design flavorful story cards, but only push them for constructed when, through playtesting, we believe that they lead to better constructed environment. The Gatewatch are still going to be our protagonists, but every member will no longer show up in every block. We may even have some blocks where none of the Gatewatch appear, although even those blocks will still be relevant to the larger story. So what I'm gathering from this is I believe it's saying that Planeswalker cards will show up less. I'm not really sure. Maybe leave the comments below. Tell me what you think. I don't really follow what the Gatewatch means or anything like that. But based on what I'm reading, it seems like maybe they're going to be printing less Planeswalkers, which I think that might be a good thing. Next, we're going to talk about the Masterpiece series. They're significantly pulling back on how often they print the Masterpiece series. Currently, the Masterpiece series is being printed in every set. However, moving forward, they're going to appear less often. To quote their article, they say, the more we worked on making Masterpiece, the more we realized that doing one every set would eventually lead to the overall quality dropping below our standards. So we've decided to make a big change with them. We're only going to do them when we can do something amazing. That means they aren't going to be something that we do often, but when we do them, they're going to be memorable. And they go on to say that our devastation will still have Amonkhet invocations, but, for example, Ixalan will not have any masterpieces. I think, yet again, this is going to be another good move for Wizards of the Coast. There's a couple of things this can do, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later in a different video. Well, that's all for now. As Wizards of the Coast releases more information, we'll break it here as soon as we can. Please look to later in the week. We're going to put together a full recap, hopefully with some guests, to sort of discuss these changes, how they're going to affect Magic the Gathering and Standard play across the board. See you next video.